What is up, NFL fans, and welcome back to For Your Viewing Pleasure. It's a preview show where we take a look at the upcoming games, and this time we're talking about Week 11. I'm Jeff Hartman, and joined always by Wesley Coleman. Wesley, what's going on, man?
Hey, we're getting really close now. We've got to getting closer to the playoffs and starting to really figure out what's going on. I guess we keep saying that, but then there's still a surprise or two every week.
There is still a surprise, and I know that it was probably after like week 4, we're like, okay, we're starting to see the difference between teams here. Now I think it's pretty drastic. I mean, you have teams that are definitely looking more towards where's our draft slot going to be in 2025, and then there's those teams that are maybe still alive, maybe in the division picture, maybe in the conference picture. And as we get closer, and I think Wesley, it was you that said typically around Thanksgiving is when we can really start to hone our attention in on the playoff picture and things like that. But as we always start off, because this is a preview show, we're going to look at the upcoming slate of games in a variety of different ways, whether it's primetime games, must-see games, fantasy lineup, all that stuff. Let's start off with the primetime games. Thursday night's a good game, I think. Commanders at Eagles. Both of these teams have 7 wins. The Commanders 7-3, Eagles 7-2. The Eagles have already had their bye week. This is for the top-ranked spot in the NFC East. This should be a fun one. Then let's go to Sunday night. Not so fun. Sunday night, Bengals at Chargers, although this is going to be a game with a lot of implications. The Bengals 4-6. Doesn't seem like they could lose another game. The Chargers trying to keep pace with the Chiefs, although they're undefeated, but maybe if they slip up, the AFC playoff picture, they're still invested in that. That's Sunday night. Monday night is, in my opinion, just a dud. It's not maybe the dud of the week, but it's bad. Texans at Cowboys. Dak Prescott gets put on injured reserve on Tuesday. He's done for the year. The Texans just don't look the same, but from a whole, primetime slate, what do you think about the slate there, Wesley?
I mean, it really starts off on the Thursday game being, the big one. With the winner of this not only is in first place in the NFC East, but they're also, they're the number 2 seed behind the Lions in the NFC rankings. So I think some of the other ones were there was maybe a time when earlier in the year when we thought they would be good games and they'd be interesting games, and as of now they don't really look that interesting. The Bengals have had a way of, even though they're losing a lot, of having all their games be fun and scoring.
True.
The Chargers have a way of making football games boring. Like they have really slowed down some football games. And hey, they've got a winning record and all, but it hasn't been a pretty football out there.
Well, hey, thank God that the flexing rules are the flexing rules, because this Sunday night game was supposed to be Colts at Jets, and the Bengals and Chargers got flexed. Everyone thought that it was going to be Steelers Ravens that got flexed into Sunday night, but if you pay attention, CBS said you're not touching that game. Yeah. They wanted to keep it on CBS, rightfully so.
The Ravens are a huge draw. They wouldn't want to give them up.
Huge fan base. That is the Baltimore Ravens fan base. But anyways, let's talk about games that we would label as must-see television, must-see TV. This could be primetime games that we just discussed, maybe. Could be a different game. I know there's one big game, actually 2, if you ask me, that would be definitely on the docket. Which one comes to mind for you first?
Yeah, I think the Kansas City Buffalo game, that afternoon game on Sunday, doesn't really have a lot of competition, I don't think. There's 2 other games, but this one stands out. I think the entire country is going to be watching, all of your football fan base at least. Kansas City hasn't lost a game yet. Buffalo's kind of been up and down about how they're looking and what they're doing, but this is a big game.
What do you think about the
spread? Buffalo?
Yeah, it's in Buffalo. Buffalo is giving 2.5 points. What are your thoughts on that? The Chiefs by record are 9-0, but I can't say that I fully feel like they are as good as last year or maybe even years prior. What are your thoughts on the spread in this game in general?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have. I thought it would. I think that it's would have stayed along normal lines, which is home team giving up 3. I thought this would have been so basically a straight pick 'em. Home team gets 3. So it's a little surprising to see. We're close. We're in the ballpark.
You a believer in the Chiefs, or do you think it's kind of smoke and mirrors? Their 9-0 record.
Hold on. I don't not believe in them.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
I think there's multiple games they could have lost and looked like they were going to lose. But I I think the way it looks that way is we still watch the Chiefs and we go, Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in football, one of the best ever, and the offense isn't what's getting it done. Their defense is amazing. And
Yeah.
I think we're underestimating them by going, oh, well, they only threw for this many yards, or Mahomes has only thrown for this many, he's already thrown for this many interceptions. But we're missing out on they're actually a very balanced team now. They need some help and they need some wide receivers to actually start to playing well. Um, but their defense is great, and so I think it's just not what we're used to of the Chiefs. It's not what's in our head. Last year, in the second half of the season, they're one of the best defenses in football. They went on an amazing run through December last year, and they're picking up where they left off. And so I think it's not what we're used to or we want to see from the Chiefs, but they're a great team.
And when you look at the rest of their schedule, the Buffalo game, a trip to Pittsburgh on Christmas Day, and outside of just some divisional games, they have a pretty soft schedule. Because let's be honest, the AFC West is not lighting up the world like the Raiders. The Broncos did give them fits. Obviously, they were a field goal away, a blocked field goal from losing their first game last week. But this is going to be. I hope this is a fantastic football game. Sometimes we build these games up and then they just don't live up to the hype. Any final thoughts on this one, though?
No, I mean we'll see. Like we'll see which Buffalo team shows up. Also, I mean both of them are used to kind of some bad weather games, so I think there's also coming a point like Mahomes has gotten beat up a little bit in a few games this year. So I mean I think at some point he's going to take a game and a half off or something.
Yeah, maybe. I'm going to go must see TV, and again for the second straight week, I'm going to pick my favorite team, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because Steelers Ravens, I still think it's a really compelling rivalry in the NFL. If you are an outsider, I'll let you comment on that in a second. But I think what was really shocking to me is the Steelers are at home. They're 7-2 coming off of their win in Washington last week, 28-27. The Ravens win on Thursday Night Football over the Cincinnati Bengals last week, 35-34. The Ravens are giving 3.5 points on the road as an opening line. I saw that and I was stunned. I'm not stunned that they're favored, but by 3.5 points, that seems steep. Wesley, what's your take on this game?
Well, I mean, I guess we're just going to figure out if the NFL is going to want the Steelers to win like they did last week against the Commanders, or are they going to let the game actually play out and call it fair?
What the hell are you talking about?
Maybe Baltimore won't put them in that position, but Jaden Daniels got completely screwed over by the league.
By what?
And so,
by what? What player are you talking about?
I don't even know. At the end of the game, there was a replay on a thing that was completely obvious of what it was.
What do you mean, Zach Ertz, the first down? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, completely a first down, like without a doubt.
That TV angle is not on the line to gain. It is an angled view. You cannot.
I'm sure all four of the angles were wrong. And the yellow line isn't official.
No, it's not. It's orange, but whatever. But yeah, it's.
But they did not put the ball on the field where the ball got to in his body.
Hey, it's still an imperfect game. I don't know. Yeah, I could see it.
No,
I said this when I let's talk about this for a second. You bring it up. I said this if they would have called it a first down and they would have reviewed it, there's not enough evidence to overturn either way. It was whatever was called on the field. I'm shocked they didn't even measure. Like they didn't even bring.
It was weird. It was weird, but I mean, I don't think there's a conspiracy.
Oh, absolutely, there is. I love conspiracy theories. But anyways, back to Ravens Steelers. Do you still think this is a premier rivalry in the league?
Man, I don't know if I don't think the Steelers have gotten the national hype that they maybe deserve of how good they're playing. And I think a lot of this is still the narrative from last year that Russell Wilson was washed. 2 years ago, he didn't play good. Last year, he was a very good quarterback in the NFL, and he got benched so that he didn't get hurt because they wanted to cut him. He did not get benched because he was playing bad. He had scored more touchdowns than any quarterback in football when he got benched. So, we just – and I think that narrative is still there. Pittsburgh this, and the coach has been there forever, but they're they got one quarterback who can't play in the NFL and just, has been a bust. And then the other guy is just old and he's washed up and can't move anymore. And both of them have won a lot of games this year. Yeah. Regardless of some of them haven't been pretty, but Russell Wilson is playing well, and now that he's got Mike Williams able to go down the field and catch a ball,
Yep.
it's pretty. It's dangerous considering they did that with Mike Williams basically having no plays. I hear, and I don't know if you can confirm, but I heard that going in the game he had a small package, and so him having that touchdown catch when that wasn't part of his package of plays, I mean was pretty amazing.
Oh my gosh. The middle schoolers coming out now, and still funny. Anyways, I will say this, that the Steelers Ravens, in terms of rivalry, it's not the same as what it was. Everyone thinks about the early 2000s: Ray Lewis, Hines Ward, Ben Roethlisberger, Ed Reed, Troy Polamalu. We could all run down the list of names. If those games played out in today's day, they would have people arrested for the way that they were hitting each other and the extracurricular stuff that happened. And not to mention, this Ravens team, everyone thinks of defense when they think of Baltimore, right? Their defense is not good. They're surrendering over 20 points per game. They have the worst statistical pass defense in the league. Kyle Hamilton might not even be able to play this week, but that ankle injury sustained on Thursday Night Football, this could look really different than what you're used to seeing from a Steelers Ravens game. But I do think it is going to be must-see TV, even for the fan. And again, it's awesome that this isn't at the same time of the Bills and Chiefs. So fans that are just wanting to see great matchups, you're not going to have to pick and choose. Or if you're, flying high like Wesley and having two TVs in one room. So you have that option. I'm going to go ahead and say that Thursday night is must-watch TV, in my
100%.
opinion.
Yeah.
And I'm curious as to how Jaden Daniels bounces back this road game to the Eagles. I'm still not a believer in the Philadelphia Eagles. There's something that just always seems off about them. Washington, I was super impressed with them last week. They were banged up, and they had a great game plan. They're well coached. I don't know. What's your take on this Thursday night game?
Yeah, I mean, I expect and hope that Washington wins. I think that, like you said, their defense is actually coming around. They look like they're well coached and are playing good. Jaden Daniels does not play at all like a rookie.
No.
What he faced last week against the Steelers would have rattled terribly most rookies, and just made it where you're useless in the fourth quarter and just run in and scared. And he did a great job of staying composed and dealing with the pressure and everything that Pittsburgh was throwing at him, and made it where you're seriously, the game came down to the last minute and a half.
Right.
So really impressed with him, and I just I'm the Eagles. Their one thing for me is if they run Saquon Barkley like crazy, that gives them a chance. Washington's got to load up and stop him. But I hope Washington wins. I think that they should, but this is a huge game for both of these teams.
With both quarterbacks also still dealing with injury. Jalen Hurts was questionable with an ankle. Nick Sirianni really botched that last week leading up to the game in terms of the reporting and stuff. But Jaden Daniels, his ribs, I didn't know this until we were obviously watching the Steelers. He's still getting the hot therapy during the game. They're putting it on his ribs.
He will be hurt for the entire season, no matter what. What he's got will not heal without a month's rest.
Oh my gosh, he's banged up. He's still playing great. So I like that Thursday night is a must-watch game. I like the fact that a Thursday night primetime game is not one of those crap games we're used to seeing, like the back in the day. It was like Tennessee and Jacksonville. Whoop-de-frickin' do. This is a good game. NFC East on the line. I like this.
And I don't know if teams are figuring something out, but we've had some high-scoring, competitive, fun Thursday night games this year. So I don't know if it's just finally took years of people figuring out the schedule and how to do it, but we've had good Thursday night games this year. Not just the quality of teams, but the actual play on the field has been fun to watch.
Yeah, and I think as long as the injuries aren't crazy high, the NFL's like, look, you guys are figuring it out. You realize that as you prep for Sunday, you have to also start your prep for Thursday. That's just how it works. Any other must-see games, though, on this slate of games, Wesley?
No, there's a lot of one-sided bad games this week.
Yeah.
No, that's the ones the three that really stick out. And then none of them are at the same time, so it's great. Everybody can watch all three of them.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about fantasy lineup games. You mentioned one-sided games. Typically, that is a game where you want to look at the fantasy rosters and say, this would be a good matchup. What are some fantasy games you're looking at?
Well, I'm still gonna. I've kind of ran with both of these teams a lot this year. Now they're playing each other, but Seattle and San Francisco do have fantasy players on both sides. I think you're back to. I think everybody probably got excited about Christian McCaffrey being back, last week. And was that going to make? Was he going to have big numbers? Was Brock Purdy going to return to his form of being propped up by the players around him? And he didn't really. But now, of course, we'll kind of see. But you've got players on both sides. Seattle still, Geno Smith is throwing the ball more than anybody in the league. He is putting up yards. I believe that we're talking about Kenneth Walker is healthy and expected to be a full participant all week and play. So I mean, there's wide receivers obviously that from Geno Smith you need to start, but both of these teams have quite a few offensive players that should be in your lineup.
Absolutely. I want to get your take on a game. I like asking you questions like this just because I like putting you on the spot. So we have the Bengals on Sunday Night Football against the Chargers. The Bengals offense is starting to kind of find their rhythm. And Joe Burrow's had some really good games in the last few weeks coming off the game in Baltimore. Jamar Chase is really setting the world on fire. And T. Higgins, you don't think he'll be out long-term with his quadricep injury. I don't know his injury status right
They're
now.
expected him to be back this week.
Okay. When he's in the lineup, that makes him even more prolific. But they're going against the Chargers, who have, in terms of points scored, the number one defense in the NFL. What's your take on the Bengals going against the Chargers on Sunday night in terms of fantasy production?
I mean, I think the Bengals are going to put up points. They've been really consistent, most of the year about at least being competitive. They're going to put up yards. They have struggled in the red zone quite a bit this year. But I mean, in the last 2 weeks, they put up 76 points against the. One was the Raiders, the other was the Ravens. So I mean, they can put up points. I think this will be the first. Have the Chargers played any of the top offenses? This might be one of their first. They've been number one in scoring by a lot, but they've played a lot of bad teams. The last 3 weeks, they've played the Saints, the Browns, and the Titans. And I mean, I guess they did have the Chiefs earlier this year, and they only gave up 17 points. So I don't know. I think this will be a big test for them because the Bengals offense looks really good. I'm sure the Bengals will figure out a way to lose it because they seem to be doing that this year. But I'm interested to see if the Chargers are for real because, I mean, again, Kansas City still undefeated. Kansas City loses at Buffalo. Chargers win. The Chargers are 2 games back. Well, they're in the same division, so they got to play each other again. So all of that gets really convoluted about how you can get into winning the division or competing with the Chiefs.
Yeah, absolutely. From another fantasy perspective, I did this last week, didn't really play out in terms of the way I thought it was. I said, pick whoever's going against the Jaguars. That was Minnesota last week. They only put up 12 points. The Lions are going against the Jaguars. They're hosting the Jaguars. I'm going to assume that Jared Goff's not going to throw 5 interceptions in a game again. I hope not. It made me miss out on money last week, but still, I digress. I think the Lions are still a good matchup at 8-1 at home against the Jaguars in terms of fantasy production. Any thoughts on that, or do you have any other fantasy games that you're looking at?
I mean, again, I think you can throw in whoever's playing the Raiders too, which is Miami this week. Miami's got a quarterback, a running back, and a couple of wide receivers that you have to start if you have them on your team. So I think that we're back to. I mean, Miami's at least going to put up yards and points. So I could see that against the Raiders.
All right, let's talk about sneaky good matchups. The games that are not going to get a lot of attention. We've already talked about those games that are going to be really the main focus from all media outlets all around the NFL. What about those games that might not be talked about as much but might be competitive? Do you have any that stick out?
I mean, Green Bay Chicago is going to be a game that's going to, I think, be competitive in the fourth quarter. It's in Chicago. Again, these interdivision matchups are always a big deal. Like when we talked about last week, that I think we both believed that the Falcons were going to go blow out the Saints. And I was like, well, but these games end up being closer than you think because these teams know each other. And then the Saints end up winning the stupid game. But I think Packers and Bears, Caleb Williams still figuring things out. Still been a rookie sometimes, but also getting better. If he
could just fired their OC. Payne Waldron fired.
I mean, I guess. I mean, their coach is getting fired at the end of the year.
That'll help the young kid. Let's
Their head
fire
coach
the
is getting fired at the end of the year regardless. I don't know why they would shake this up this way, but I bet this game ends up being more competitive and being a one-score game towards the end. What about you? You got any of them that while the other 3 must-watch games aren't on that you're going to have to see?
Have to see, no. You brought up Seahawks 49ers. There's a lot of significance in that game, especially with the Arizona Cardinals winning a bunch. And now all of a sudden, like, where did this team come from? So the Arizona leading the NFC West is not anything that I had on my bingo card to start the year. But I'll tell you another game that's interesting, at least on paper, because the loser of this game is going to be in dire straits, and that's Falcons Broncos in Denver. And so you have a Falcons team that's 6-4. You mentioned they're coming off the loss to the Saints last week. They're in that NFC South is just a muddled mess right now at the top. Denver at one point was like, wow, maybe this team is a team to be reckoned with in the AFC. Bo Nix, yes, but Sean Payton had him in the right direction. They get their doors blown off by Baltimore. They lose a heartbreaking game to the Chiefs. You lose another 3 straight and you're 5-6. You might stick a fork in that team. And so in terms of those narratives, that is a game I would be looking at. Any others for you?
I will say on that one, just, Sean Payton has an incredible record against the Falcons. He beats them a lot. For New Orleans, he
for sure
handily beat them a lot. You're not, is it a Super Bowl rematch of Joe Flacco versus Aaron Rodgers? Did they ever face each other a decade ago in an important game or something? I don't know. I don't think they actually did, but they were, you're not scrambling for the 2024 version of Flacco versus Rodgers.
I don't know what to say. Like the Jets, if I'm a Jets fan, I'm just furious. This is awful.
It's one of those things. Like, I know a lot of people hate Aaron Rodgers, and I would never defend him. I understand why people hate him.
Yeah.
I don't hate Aaron Rodgers. Watching him play football, he's a smart guy, and I like watching him play football. Or have. I have gotten so much joy from all the Jets losses this year, though. And it's not about Aaron Rodgers, but them thinking they're a terribly ran organization and them thinking that they could fail for so many years, have one good draft, and then go, oh, all we need to do is overpay this quarterback and get some coup to get him out of his team and do all this, and then sign a couple of old players that he handpicked. It's just been awesome to watch them suck at it. And for it to all be terrible. Last year, I hated him getting hurt so early in the year. And I was like, man, I wonder what could have happened. And then I like Devontae Adams a whole lot. I love watching him play football. But them getting him and still being terrible is, again, it's just hilarious to me. And it's one of those train wrecks that I love watching. I hope they keep losing because I think he's retiring after this year. And I don't know what they're going to do. They're going to be in worse position than they would have been because of the way they've gotten these players, and they're gonna have nothing.
Train wreck is a great way to describe the Jets right now because you have to watch. It's intriguing, and there's so many different factors. I think they were a quarterback away way too literally. They were not a quarterback away, obviously, and if they were a quarterback away, they got the wrong quarterback. He just looks old now, and I'm sorry, the dude's 40, and he's coming off a ruptured Achilles tendon. You could talk about all the darkroom experiences, the Oshwa, whatever it is that he's done. It's just not going to make your leg move the same. You're not going to be able to move the same. Kirk Cousins talked about how his Achilles tear, his rupture was still getting itself worked out. It's just not the same. I don't know. The Jets suck, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it because all those, you got the Mike Greenbergs of the world that are so obnoxious. You're like, gosh, you just pissed me off so bad. But anyways, let's move on. You could only watch one game, Wesley. Which one is it this week?
Man, the Kansas City Buffalo is a hard one to pass up, but I'm probably going to watch the Washington Philadelphia game. I like watching Saquon Barkley run, and everything Jaden Daniels has done for the last 3 years, I've liked watching it. So I'd watch it too.
So I'm going to I'll avoid the homer pick of Steelers Ravens, and I would say that I'm really, really intrigued to watch the Bills and the Chiefs. I have personally rooting interest. I hope the Bills blow their freaking ears off. I really do. Let's upset the apple cart. Let's if there is any part of the Chiefs that could be exposed, let's expose that now. That's what I want to see. But that would be my must-see game of the week. Now
See,
there's a
I thought you'd be angling for the Chiefs because the Chiefs are going to be the number 1 seed. Just have them keep winning, and that way you get to be the number 2 seed watching Buffalo lose.
man, I just want to see the Chiefs lose right now. I'm so sick of the Chiefs and the 9-0 and undefeated and Patrick Mahomes and his sideshow Bob Harrell all over the place. I'm just so sick of seeing it. So, all right, let's go to the dud of the week. You might have taken one that I was going to pick, but what about you? What's your dud of the week this week? There's a lot of options.
Yeah, I mean, ugh. It's a weird. There are options for sure.
Yeah.
I think I'll just say I think most people are going to see the dud of the week as the Browns and the Saints. I think that looks like the dud of the week. I think there's competition for it because the Saints just beat the Falcons and they're fixing to go play the Broncos. I think that we're just talking about what could be a bad football game. But I'll say, the Browns have been an absolute train wreck. Their defense has been okay, but on offense, they're a train wreck. Jameis Winston threw 3 interceptions before going into the bye week. And this was going to be an interesting game because he was going to come back and face Dennis Allen, the coach that he ignored and ran his own play in the season last year. But that whole story is over. And honestly, New Orleans has had a couple exciting things, and it was they beating a division rival like the Falcons. But this is going to be, I think, a hard game for the team to get up for. We got the interim coach bump that you normally get for a game or two. So this one, this could be a couple of defenses that are better than the offenses and a low scoring kind of not pretty game.
All right. So you're saying take the under in the 44.5.
I would.
I'm actually going to go with my dud of the week as Vikings at Titans. The Vikings are coming off of a rousing victory where Sam Darnold and the Vikings put up 12 awesome points against the Jaguars, who were only able to muster 6. And that was without Trevor Lawrence. He was out that game. And so I don't know if Trevor Lawrence, who cares about Trevor Lawrence? The Titans with Will Levis now at quarterback. It's 7-2 versus 2-7, but the over-under is 39.5, and I'd say hammer the under. I feel like Sam Darnold, the shine is not as shiny as it was earlier in the season, and the Vikings are being buoyed by their defense. I think this is going to be an ugly game. I'm going to have that as my dud of the week. Any others on for you?
Yeah, I'll just throw in. We've done some one-sided exciting games. I'll do the one-sided dud. The Houston versus Dallas is, I think, going to be really bad. And it's a Cowboys home game on Monday night. CJ Stroud needs this. He needs a get-right game where he gets some confidence and has some fun. They've lost a couple of close games where he just looks like it destroys him after he didn't lose a whole lot of games last year.
Right.
I think this is a perfect game for them. The Cowboys are in disarray. They need more and more excuses so they can fire their coaching staff. Rumor is that Dak is having surgery sometime this week. He's definitely done for the year. But I think this is a big opportunity for CJ Stroud. But it's going to be, there's not going to be much reason to watch the second half of this game, I don't think.
No. There's not a lot of reason for me to watch the first half of this game. Is Cooper Rush still the quarterback, or are they going Trey Lance? Do you know?
I don't know, but it doesn't matter. They're both bad. Neither one of them can throw the ball. Trey Lance had the exciting thing of breaking, contain, and running, but he just kept doing that because he can't throw the ball.
Yeah. All right, man. This has been another great preview of the upcoming slate in Week 11. Why don't you tell us where we can find your New Orleans Saints coverage, and on social media, where can we find you?
I am on X at @WhoDatWesley13. You can find our Dome Patrol or Saints coverage at Dome Patrol PCast. How about you, Jeff?
You can find our Steelers coverage at the Steel Curtain Network. Anywhere where you get your podcast search, you'll find us. You can find me on social media at jhartman, HARTMAN_PIT. But that does it this week. Week 11, we'll be back next week to preview Week 12. Wesley, enjoy the games, man. We'll talk next week.
See you next week.